Hi, everybody. This is Lorina.
And Kimmie.
And today we're going to talk in part two about energy healing. I'm going to talk about a lot of the different types of energy healing modalities that I've done, because I've done a lot, and just to share what it is, what they look like, the different types. And it's still not everything, but it's a pretty good list. So, yeah. Anyway, did you want to share anything?
No, I think I want our viewers, both
Mhm.
here and on Spirit Chats, to familiarize themselves with you as like our resident healer.
Me.
I do healing work, but I'm not as actively involved with it right now. I'm taking a sabbatical, but you're the healing anchor in this
Yeah.
duo. So I want to highlight you.
Okay, cool. So, all right. In my background, being raised Mormon, is Mormons believe in hands on healing, which is energy healing. But of course, only men can do it. So, when I was living in New York, it was 1991. I had a friend who went to this energy healing workshop and she asked me if I wanted to do it. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Because, well, I grew up with that. I was familiar with it. I'm like, yeah, women, well, not women, people can heal through hands on healing, which is really basically it's a connection to spirit or God or your higher self or could be a myriad of things, but that's the basis of it is that yes, we can do that. And so when I had that opportunity and we went to Connecticut to do this, and it was in 1991, and it's an energy healing system called MariEL, which is
Mhm.
ARI, capital E, capital L, MariEL. And what it is, Mother Mary is for the Mary part, and El as in the Elohim or the Elohim, however you say it. And but from what I know is that they are part of the creators of the matrix that is the universe. So this is pretty big, guys. Anyways, I did start doing that in 1991, and I had never done anything like that before, and it was incredibly powerful. I had never even heard of Reiki at this point. I didn't know anyone who did it. I had just heard about this, so I went and learned it.
Mhm.
Anyway, it's based on you do have an attunement or some sort of initiation and you learn the symbols that go with it. And then what you do is you put your hands on somebody's head who's laying on a table, a massage table, and you draw these symbols. So in your mind, you're drawing a grid system through their body,
Okay.
the front and the back of their body. I actually have the original papers. Okay, I don't know if that makes me crazy, but here's what it looks like. And those are the symbols. Anyway, and you draw one on the crown and draw these symbols. And then you go through the body. While you're drawing this grid, you can tell where there's stuff in the body. You can feel it. Usually, where you have a hard time drawing the grid system, it's really hard to draw it there. It's like it doesn't want to. So you can tell. And then what you do is you go in a particular way. Then you put your hands on the body just through certain parts. After you do that, it's like you do the eyes. Anyway, not going to give the whole system. But
Mhm.
after you do, that's like the first part. You start pulling stuff out. You start pulling stuff out of the eyes, the throat, the heart, and then you do it again. You start doing the hands-on thing again, and then you pull out of the lower part of the body. But what's interesting is, so I learned how to pull stuff out. This is you don't learn this in Reiki. This you pull energy out and it's part of the system and you actually like the eyes just as an example, so you'd have your hand over someone's eyes and you say allow images, and you don't have to know what those images are, just allow the energy of what could be locked in your eyes to come into my hand, and you start and you can feel stuff going on in your hand, and so you're asking for permission to pull this stuff out, and then you start pulling it out, and at some point you pull, I mean, you could be standing 6 feet away with this
Mhm.
like energy stream from their eyes to wherever you're standing, holding your hand out. And then you go, are you ready to let this go? And they say, yes, do I have your permission? And you go and you break the energy and it's gone. And you do this throughout the body. And then at some point, you do it in the back of the body. You do it, their major organs in the body. It's very powerful. And then end it in a very particular way. Sometimes when you end it, this is where you see a lot of past lives show up, or at least I
Okay.
have like start seeing like So it's not just this lifetime, it's other lifetimes. And what I've seen by when doing this is that, and this happened like where we were learning it, there are, I mean, everyone's got stuff that's stuck in there. Pain, heartbreak, whatever, because most stuff that gets stuck in the body has a basis that is karmic and painful. Some old heartbreak or something that gets stuck in the body. Anyway, so as you're doing this process, people cry, people yell sometimes. I mean, it can be quite
Wow.
loud. In fact, it could scare some people because this was what I saw and what has happened when I was doing it. And just really interesting because then after that, I did Reiki. And I did Reiki 1, and then I went to somebody else and did 1, 2, and 3. And so I did become a Reiki master, but it was so completely different than Reiki
I was
because
gonna say Reiki probably looked boring compared to MariEL.
exactly. I thought, "Oh my god, this is boring." But, sometimes you need to be easy, that's okay. We're just gonna put your hands here, and then here. And you can feel really good energy coming through. But this MariEL, which is Mother Mary, is supposed to be one of the people, spirits, or ascended masters helping you do this. A lot of people, when you do this, particularly women, feel like Mother Mary's there. So it's really interesting.
Oh wow.
Anyway, it is very different than Reiki. And so I did think that Reiki was boring when I first started doing it. But
Yeah.
okay, I'm a little different now. I appreciate quiet things too.
True. Yeah.
And but it was very powerful. And so I did become a Reiki master. And then I became a Karuna Ki master, which is an extension of Reiki with just more symbols. And it does become, as you do more of it, it becomes more dynamic where you do see more things happen or feel more things move and stuff like that. Anyway, so are you a Reiki master? I know that you did Reiki.
Yeah, I did it while I was in acupuncture school. It's nice.
Mhm.
It's a nice compliment to acupuncture.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it feels good. Yeah. Anyway, then after that, so I'm gonna move through quickly because MariEL's pretty cool. And I
Mhm.
still
I
do it.
experienced it with you. Remember you taught
I
us a few things? Yeah.
Yes, I did. And I have taught MariEL. It is very powerful. Now, the woman who her name is Ethel Lombardi, she's the person who created it. She did not leave anything when she died. Nobody took that on, and
Oh.
yeah, so it is dying out. So if you can find someone to teach it to you, do it. Somebody who's done it. And I learned from her. So there are a few people out there who are teaching it, but some of those people that I know of did not take it from her because you
Oh,
can't remember when she died, but I learned it in 1991. So there
good.
isn't a like MariEL community who like Reiki became this giant thing.
Right.
Yeah, MariEL, and I think it's because when she died, she didn't leave somebody ahead of as a head of the healing system to continue on with it for some
Could
reason.
you like, is it the same as Reiki in the sense that you receive the symbols?
You receive the symbols. They're very easy though. And it doesn't seem as mystical as like Reiki. Because she said when and she had like 3 guys show up, and I can't remember how they showed up, if it was in a dream or they were physically standing in front of her, if it was subjective in her mind. She had an experience, and she was a Reiki master. She was one of the first Reiki masters in the US. So she's one of those people who paid $10,000 to become a Reiki master because it used to
Okay.
cost that much money. So when
Yeah.
this experience happened to her, like these 3 guys came to her who looked like monks in robes, and they said, "No, this is what you need to do." And they taught her this system. So when she learned the system, they said to her, "You can create the symbols."
Oh,
So
okay.
she created the symbols. Now, does that mean that she was being directed to create them to make them look a particular way? I can't answer that. But so maybe she thought she was making it up, but they were giving it to her. I can't say. Like that happened. Anyway, so it is very powerful. And that I still to this day, there's a crown chakra symbol that you do when you start
Okay.
doing it. I still do it all the time when I do energy healings. and I do the grid system to look into inside people's bodies to see what's there. So I do use parts of it still. But she did say specifically, if you are not doing all the steps to the MariEL system, if you change it in any way, you're not doing MariEL. She was very specific about that.
Okay.
Hey, I still use pieces of it
Yeah.
and it works. That's all I can say. Yeah. And so I did much more of the MariEL than I ever did of Reiki, because it was my first one, and it was very powerful and it worked. Even though I've done lots of Reiki too, but I still preferred that because it was my first entry into it. And then I did matrix energetics, which is Richard Bartlett's form of energy healing, which
Okay.
and a lot of people have heard of matrix energetics. Richard Bartlett, he's written a couple of books. He's a really wacky, fun guy. I have been to at least 4 of his matrix energetics workshops because people, once you've done it, they were so much fun that people would just keep going back.
Well,
Like there were people who've been 10 times, 9 times, 7 times. I think I went to 4 or 5 of them. And so I did all of the levels of matrix energetics. He's not teaching matrix energetics anymore. It's a long story. I can give you the inside dirt, but I know it's not what this is about.
Yeah.
But it's a very dynamic system where it's based on quantum entanglement. And so what started with something, and he had some really interesting experiences, like with Superman, like Superman helping him heal some woman's eyes or a girl's eyes or something. And he was a chiropractor and a naturopath and completely overworked. And so he had these mystical experiences come in to help him and it started with the Superman experience, as in seeing Superman and removing something from somebody's eyes and them being able to see. So this kind of dynamic situation happened. And then all of a sudden it went into this quantum entanglement thing and so what you do, the basis of it is doing something called the 2-point, where you where is this thing held in your body? So say my shoulder hurts right now. So here's the spot on my body. Now, where in the field, because and I know you've heard this, I've talked about this before.
Yes.
All possibilities exist around me, every possible thing. So this is the point that I don't want. Where's the point where it's healed? Where it's just healed. That's it. There is a counterpoint to it where healing is. So I find that point. Oh, look, that point. I'll do it so you can see my screen. So let's do it. Where is it? And so you feel in the field and using your imagination. Oh, it's right here. This point is right here. So you connect the 2 points, seeing in your mind that those 2 points connect. There is a collapse of reality, of the wave of reality, and you let it go. And you're into the new reality is what happens. And his workshops, and see, I feel like something happened when I did that because it feels like the energy shifting there, which is really nice because my shoulder usually does hurt. So what was I going to say? So people, when he did work and when you work with him or other people, when you do it, because there's a lot of where you get to work with each other, people were falling over, people you just touch them and they go back and started doing really weird movements and just very incredibly dynamic and fun. And you could feel the energy in the room of just what is possible. And they also did something where this is like level 2 or something where you open windows. And it's basically the same thing, but say you're a medium and for some reason you don't feel like the spirits are showing up for you to communicate with. Hey, look, there's a window right here. I can open the window. And literally, I'm going to open that window and I'm going to allow them to come in. Or there's something, so it is really, a lot of it has to do with imagination and what scenarios you can come up with. And they also work with something called Morphic Field. So say you want to be more like Oprah. You love Oprah. There's a Morphic Field of Oprah. Okay, so you can actually use her as the Morphic Field of Oprah. Hey, I don't know, why did I think of her? Because she's really not on the scene much anymore. Let's see, can we find someone better? We'll just use her.
You mean
So
if you wanted to be like rich and famous and a newscaster with your own show?
yeah, okay, and really out there in the world and using their voice to change things. So there's a Morphic Field of Oprah. She's connected to a lot of people and she's very powerful. And she really does speak in a profound way to get her ideas across. So I'm going to connect with where's the Morphic Field of Oprah? Let's see, because it's a really big field. There's a lot of energy in that field. So again, the Morphic Field of Oprah is right here. So what you do is you can imagine, or there are several ways you could do it. You could just like, I'm tapping into the field of Oprah here and bringing that in. Or I could just like bring that Morphic field over, and you can do this for someone too. Like, okay, so I'm bringing that Morphic field of Oprah into my field, like fully, and to see how I change. So things could actually shift up inside of you to become more like that. So that is a very small piece of matrix energetics, but it's really, really fun. And stuff happens. I mean, miraculous things happen when you were at those workshops. And then we had practice groups with some people around here in Phoenix that we worked on each other. It was just always fun and exciting. You could feel things shifting and changing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool. It made me think of a little bit of, oh my God, Gerald O'Donnell. Because like I have been trying to focus on this man's program for a while, and he's a remote viewer, remote influencer. But I saw him get interviewed recently, and he was talking about how he started to realize all he needed to do for remote viewing is find it within his own field.
Mhm.
And it made me think of you. He's like, I no longer, when I remote view, he was telling the interviewer, go other places. I view from inside my field and I find in my field what it is I want to view. And I was like,
Oh,
my mind was just like, but it makes complete sense.
that's perfect. And going on to, I also studied something called the Yuen method, which has a similar quality. And the reason why I found him is because a lot of people at the Matrix Energetics workshops had studied with Cam Yuen. Cam Yuen he's not alive anymore. He died a couple years ago. But here's one of his workbooks. So I took 3 levels of that, but it was all online. He was a Shaolin monk, like 35th generation Shaolin monk. He was in LA. He started working with, what was that one show? David Carradine. I can't remember. Some kung fu show. Anyway, so he, at some point, because when you do like Qigong and that type of work, you're working with energy. They are energy masters. So he came up with this system. Well, the biggest part of that system, and I don't really use it because it just didn't hit with me.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing, and I did 3 levels, and to me, it seemed like the same thing over and over again, which was find the thing that is wrong with the person. They spend a lot of time finding out what's wrong. It's in your field, you find it, and then you do this thing where you breathe and you pull in the muscles of your spine and hold them, and then you let it go. And it moves the thing. But most of the time they spend finding out so is it on a cosmic level? Is it on a physical level? Which is it? They don't do the elements. Anyway, it's really interesting, all the different levels that you can look at to see where the hook or the problem is.
Right.
And through this breathing and this back manipulation that you do on yourself, you let it go. So quite interesting.
Well, that
And
would make sense because I mean, the spine has a lot to do with your nervous system.
Mhm.
All those points along your spine is, well, your whole nervous system anchors in your spirit,
Mhm.
the spirit
Yeah.
level.
Yeah. Anyway, and then I did theta healing, but I only did 1 level of that because
Yep.
theta, called theta healing. It's Viana Stibble, I think is her name. I did that because I was interested. I read her book and I thought it was really interesting what she did. So I took just the level 1 class.
Mhm.
The thing I like the best about it is the way that they do scanning.
Okay.
They do a part of the healing session is scanning, where you sit in front of somebody and you scan them. And you also learn how to disengage from people. Like there's a real like, okay, this is you, this is me. I'm going to separate from you. And also, and it's based on theta healing. Why it's called theta healing is they take you up. There is like a prayer that you say, and the prayer is supposed to, so you're using your imagination, saying this prayer that you're going up to through the 7 levels of the cosmos or heaven, whatever, where God exists. You go up there, you talk to God, and you command what type of healing that you want for this person. So which is a part of healing too, is like to command what you want to happen to this person. That is a big part of that. And also a big part of that is like finding what's wrong. You spend a lot of time finding the issue that needs to be healed. Interesting. Whereas matrix energetics, oh, what's bothering you? Let's not label it. Because the more you label something, the more it can condense and get more impact in wherever it is in your body. So it's a little more vague because, oh, it's just this thing that's disturbing you. Let's see if we can get rid of that instead of really getting into labeling it, because then it has more power. So it's just an interesting way to look at healing.
Well, the first thought that came to me, I've heard people talking about theta. I think I have a naturopathic friend that's doing it, but I'm like, okay, so if you're focusing on a problem, then you're just gonna like find more problems. It's like that's the consciousness with it is the problem.
Giving it power. So that's why matrix energetics. You don't spend a lot of time in naming it. You call it maybe there's a disturbance there. Okay, let's see what we can do.
Disturbance in the field.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And anyway, and so I also investigated like quantum healing, which is a lot to do with breath work and building up your system. Pranic healing, I did study a little bit, but I never got into it as much as some people went through all the levels. They work a lot with crystals, which I love. So I do have their books. Star healing, star magic healing. I forgot the guy's name, Jerry Sargent. That's it. I used some of his techniques. I used to use quite a few of his techniques. They're good. And they're just listed in his book, his basic star magic book. So you can read that and just go, oh, I want to try that, that's cool. I like that. And then there's some good techniques in there. So if you feel like you want to explore some, read his books. Don't pay $2,000 for his workshop, unless you really want to, of course. Oh, and by the way, his workshops, Star Magic workshops, and Richard Bartlett's workshop, if you've been to both of those, I haven't been to Jerry Sargent's workshops, but there's a really similar quality where there's some wild stuff happening, and it has a very similar flavor to the matrix energetics.
Okay.
Very similar. So I think there's the same type of dynamic going on there. And then let's see, what else did I want to talk about? Holosets. Well, so I did another kind of matrix energetics workshop, which is Richard Bartlett again, called Holo Energetic Technology System. It's a really weird name. It's
Is there a gadget? It sounds like there's a gadget somewhere.
Yeah, no gadgets.
Oh, okay.
And he called it Holosets for short because it's such a weird name that it's hard to even remember. But Holosets. And it's so complex that I couldn't even tell you, I couldn't even explain it. It's incredibly complex because it was made for chiropractors in the first place. So people have a real strong knowledge of the physical body.
Okay.
But he takes it in steps down to like a layperson like me could understand and actually do some of these systems. And it's really interesting because in it, you did this time travel stuff where you tap on the head and tap and check for like fight or flight, what's held in the body around fight or flight. And through this tapping and doing this thing and then breathing, it goes away. So I still do some of it, but I can't even explain it to you. It's that complex, but you can do timeline jumping and things like that. So there's some really cool aspects to it. And that's when I started doing, after doing that, I started doing in healing sessions, timeline jumping, like, oh, you had this really bad thing happen to you. Let's go back to that point and then go like a year before that and see if we can, you're not removing the thing, but you're removing the energetics behind the thing so that and then reconnect the timelines to now and just removing that energy that's in that timeline that was very disruptive or difficult. So it's quite interesting. So I did learn some of that. And then do you have any comments?
No.
Anyway, and then also I did do a psychic surgery class once and it was a medium who was teaching it. And he came here to Phoenix and I went, oh, someone's teaching psychic surgery. I want to go to that. And what it really was, so he called it that. I would
Okay.
call it trance healing because really it was trance healing.
Okay.
And yeah, but it was really fun. So I wouldn't call it true psychic surgery, even though that's what he called it, psychic surgery. And what you do when you do that kind of healing, and I have done this, and sometimes it happens spontaneously when you do energy healing, it is like trance healing. So what you're doing is not a system or labeling it, you're just doing what's coming through you. And so what happens is, so when you're doing this kind of trance healing, so you ask spirit doctors, or they also call it spirit chemists, to come through you, and you ask them to, like, literally come through you and ask them to take over your hands and
Okay.
start doing this healing, and things start, and you can sometimes you move around a little bit, but it's usually not a whole lot, and energy is moving. It's pretty amazing. And sometimes when I do that, it's not like it's a plan, it just happens. But and that goes to when you work with a set of guides who you really trust, or your higher self, and perhaps some ascended masters like Jesus or Mother Mary or whoever, and they're working through you because it's not really you. And that's the most it's like you become less you and
Okay.
more this conduit of energy that's doing stuff. And the spirit beings show up and help you out. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I've actually had the experience where more than once, because sometimes the ego wants to get in there and go, okay, I'm going to do this, right? What ends up happening is that, and I've seen beings like around me, and they're going, don't do anything. Stop. Take a step back. And
Yeah.
so I take a step back. I'm like, okay, thanks, guys. And they're doing it. You think you're doing it, but they're doing it. Anyway, so
Cool.
that can happen. So, but that's our ego in our minds, and because it's still there. And I've actually also, and I used to do this more than I do now, where when your ego wants to come in and start doing things, you actually go, okay, go sit in the corner over there
Yeah.
and stop because you're not helping. Because that could happen too.
Yeah.
And and lately, and I've also been doing, and this is the most recent thing that I've been working on, and you know about this. I've been doing this 5 element healing, which is through Swami Kaleshwar, and who is not on earth anymore, but he was a healing saint. And it's the system you're working with Jesus, and also Irdri Sai Baba, or Baba for short. It's using this 5 element healing. And and that's a process that you actually have to go through, where you're doing a lot of mantras and you're creating, and you're make yantras on, sometimes on paper and sometimes on copper, that
Yeah.
have power. But you go through a purification process while you're learning this, so it's not something that you learn in a weekend. It's something that you learn over time, and a lot of time, and a lot of dedication, but it's very powerful. And they also, so it's like using the water element, or the fire element, or the air, or this, well, you don't, sky element you don't really use, that's for you, which is the ether, and also earth element. And you use that to, so you become more purified, so that you can actually, because we are made of the 5 elements. So what it
Mhm.
does, it goes in and starts moving stuff through the earth elements,
Right.
through all of the elements, depending on what it is. And most most people, I mostly do earth element, because that's for a lot of physical ailments, and also like depression, mental disturbances, things like this. But there's also some other things to it. And it's not just the 5 element healing. There's also Shakti, Kundalini. Also have this JC, it's called the JC yantra, which has the Jesus, which is Jesus Christ. It's a yantra that has all these lines on it and words that have a particular power. So So once you go through that initiation, you have that's open inside of you, and so you can work with that. Anyway, it's really, there's a lot to it. And that can take years to go through that process. So I've been doing that. So anyway, all of it's really interesting and fun. And a lot of times too, which I haven't talked about, sometimes when you're doing energy healing, it becomes a reading or mediumship, and all these other things can happen because while you're doing it, it's very dynamic. You can see things happening. You can see things coming up out of the body. You can see your ancestors, like a line of them. Or you can sometimes see the future, a future lineup of things that this person's going towards. And at this point, I usually don't do a set of this is what we're going to do today. It's a little more free flow than that because I've done so many systems and there's little pieces of everything that I do what I'm called to do and use different pieces of whatever comes to me. Or it's usually when I start a session, when I call in my guides and I do the scanning and then I go, show me what to do. And then you go from there. That's it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You could tell how passionate Lorina is by like how much you just you could tell how happy you were to share what you
Oh, really?
learned.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's
That's why I wanted you to talk about what you learned so that everybody understands how much time you've dedicated to
yeah.
this work.
And money.
And money.
I mean, money. Just
Yeah.
learning all this and doing it. My favorite thing about it is, well, being in that dynamic state where you're in it and you're feeling the energy and you're feeling the guides and you're watching stuff happen. You can see stuff coming out of like the heart or the womb or the throat or just it could be anywhere. And you feel the energy and you see the energy moving. And it's pretty amazing to be in that state and watch it happen.
Yeah.
And to get information while it's happening. So,
Right.
yeah. Anyway, I've done a couple sessions on Kimmie.
She has, and she's amazing. So
Yeah.
it's my resident healing woman and energy healing woman in Phoenix. Well, I mean, remotely too. I guess that's one thing we probably should discuss too, is people don't realize like a lot of this stuff can be done remotely.
Oh, yeah. It can be. Yeah. I did a remote session on somebody who I didn't even talk to her. I talked to her mother. And then we decided, okay, this session is going to be on her daughter at this particular time. And it was at night. And so we asked her just lay down and just be quiet at that time period and be meditative. And I literally saw, and this is a remote session. I'm not connected to anybody as far as on the phone even. And usually it's over the phone. And that works to me, or WhatsApp, because it actually helps not to see people. When you're doing it remotely, it's because that can be a distraction actually. So when you do it, but you can do it on Zoom. It's easy. I would turn the lights down, the video off during the session probably, because it really can be a distraction.
Yeah.
So, but when I saw this woman, I think within the first 5 minutes of doing this session, first of all, I saw how, incredibly broken this woman was. She'd been through so much. Her husband had died very tragically, like the day before Thanksgiving.
Oh, wow.
In a motorcycle accident. I mean, it was it was on the news. It was that kind of accident. It was really like horrific. And she tried to talk him into not going for whatever reason. And then he ended up dying. So it was just tragic all the way around. Anyway, so within the first 5 minutes, I literally saw, in my mind's eye, I saw, or psychically, I saw a piece of her soul literally come in and put that part of herself, that fragmented part of herself back into her body. It was like, whoa. So that was supposed to be an hour healing. That was in the first 5 minutes. But that was the most important piece. So I did other stuff because there was stuff that needed to be done, but it was amazing. And so when I talked to her mother afterwards and I told her what I saw, I never did hear from them again because that happens all the time. It's like, but a big part of her that fragmented out from that wound came back. And so that is healing. That is true.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's part of what it's about.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
do remember you were just like getting me when you were talking about her spirit walking back. I do remember one session with you where a lot for me, I am like an ancestral, I do a lot of lineage, ancestral work. And I'm on a hiatus to see my next where I'm leveling up. But I do remember with my ancestral work, you working on me, and I was really relaxed and in the zone. And I remember distinctly seeing my maternal great grandfather. He was not a good man
Mhm.
from the stories I was told. All of a sudden, I saw him hop, like somehow you were working on my feet, and he hopped down, and I felt him jump into my energy field on a spirit point, like near my ankle, which is part of the yang, like meridian system,
Uh-huh.
strengthen the yang energy being the masculine. So
Mhm.
somehow you had moved something in my energy field that put him in the proper place. Because
Mm.
when you have an ancestor that they don't, he was very sexually deviant
Mm.
and improper from the stories I was told. And so I think you had cleared something about that. So then he became a proper ancestor in
Mm.
that session I had with you.
Cool.
Um, yeah. And I was clearing a lot of that stuff at that time with my mom's lineage,
Uh-huh.
or for like Native American, like a lot of that colonialism stuff with the Spaniards. That was like a huge wound in me. And so, yeah, I remember that. And I was like, what was that? And you're like, I don't know. I just felt something go in your ankle. And I'm like, that was Conrad.
Yeah, and a lot of times when stuff moves, I mean, our this is just one more thing to say, but our mind wants to know exactly what that was.
Yeah.
What was that? What just left? I felt it. And some people ask me because they felt something get up and move. Sometimes you don't know. It's just take it as something's moving. It's got a lot of fear in it. It's got a lot of like this really dark, dense energy. Let's just let it move. Sometimes we don't need to label it, but that's what our mind wants to do. But sometimes I do know what it is, or I see it, or they know what it is. But it could be all of the above. But that's our mind wants to know what it was. It's like we don't always get to know.
No.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just either not supposed to know, or you're just supposed to feel, or you just get the
Mhm.
gist. This is the
Yeah.
gist of it.
Yes. Sometimes you just get the gist of it, and it's like, okay, thanks. Because better out than in. Truly, better out than in. And sometimes at the end of a session, because you're in such a high state of energy moving, and I'm in that state, it's almost like at the end, there's like channeled information comes through too, as far as what's going on and where they are in their lives and stuff. So usually it ends with a little bit of like, okay, this is what they're telling me. This is what they're showing me. This is where you are. This is where you're going, and projecting in that direction. So it's a pretty cool experience. Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Anyway, did I talk enough about it? I mean, I could talk more.
No, I can talk as much as you want. We're at
Yeah,
42 minutes. So, or we
I
could just
think
do a part 3.
I think we're good. And also and it heal everything. Any like trauma is the biggest thing. Wounds and trauma. And there's so much trauma and wounds and heartbreak that we experience as humans. It can take many years to heal from these things. I think it just speeds it up exponentially so that these things that have happened to people and that they carry with them wherever it comes from, whether it's ancestors or generational or this lifetime, it moves that energy so that you're more present, you're more here, and that you can be more clear about the life that you want to live and what that looks like. Yeah, so you can create what you want, because that's we all just want to create beautiful lives for ourselves, but we got a lot of stuff in the way. Basically.
Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, I think I said enough.
that's it. Okay, for
Yeah.
now. Till the
Yeah.
next time.
Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm sure there's some things I left out, but that's okay.
Well, if there's anything you want to know based on what Lorena shared, put it in the comment section.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And if anything else that you want us to talk about, please leave it in the comments.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Lorena is available for healing sessions, readings, all that. My main focus right now is crypto intuition, like mini readings, things like that. But resident healer, Lorena.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this.
Like, subscribe,
Yes, please. Share. Please
and
share.
share.
All right. Bye, everybody.
See? Like and subscribe for additional crypto intuitive readings, global predictions, and intuitive development education. If you would like a private reading with Kimmie or Lorina, please find our individual websites listed below. Please remember this information is for entertainment purposes only and should never be considered as professional financial advice.